Northeast School students, which was a cultural regulation program held from 6th to 11th February in 2002. The NSS unit of NLU Assam is honored to be graced by your presence, ma'am. It is my great privilege to request our honorable chief guest, Professor Dr. Preeti Saxena, to enlighten the audience with the words of wisdom and address.
Thank you, Rishika, for the nice words about me. I'm thankful to Professor Ahuja, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of National Law University, Assam, and the entire organizing team, including this NSS unit at IQAC cell of the university, for inviting me on this very momentous occasion, auspicious occasion. As told by you all that today we are commemorating the Human Rights Day. And this is because of this adoption by the United Nations General Assembly, that UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is, you see, is a very, very revolutionary and a milestone document. And it is the most translated document in the world. More than in 500 languages it has been translated, so as to reach the every corner of the world. This document proclaims the inalienable rights, the human rights to everyone as a human being. My topic for today's lecture, as rightly told, is equality and empowerment through human rights. So in UDHR, everyone is entitled to human rights as a human being, regardless of the race, religion, color, caste, sex, whatever type of the distinctions may be created. These rights are available to everyone, because if you see the language or the provisions which are there in the UDHR, they starts with the, or they begins with the word everyone and no one. There is nothing like any other use of the word besides this everyone and no one. So we see that by being born in the human race, every human being is entitled to all the human rights. There is no distinction on the ground of any political or other opinion. There is no distinction on the ground of language, or you see the national or social origin of the person concerned. It is also not being discriminated on the grounds of the property, on the grounds of the birth, or any of the status. So this year theme, as rightly told by you, that is for the 2021, equality. Equality that has to reduce the inequalities, that has to advance the human rights. So the theme relates to the equality. And you see Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that rightly declares all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So thereby laying the field for the exercise and the enjoyments of all other rights. This is Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which starts with the very equality, and the theme in this century also, that is the equality. All are equal. So the principles of equality, that is at the heart of the human rights. And this equality is also, you see, is related with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We all know that the Sustainable Development Goals are there, and those Sustainable Development Goals are to be achieved by 2030. 17 goals are there. So the challenge of inequality is very, very central to this idea of 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development Goals also. And you see that out of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, 2 goals are entirely dedicated to this objective, that is SDG 10, that is directed at the reducing inequality within and among the countries, and SDG 5, that is to achieve the gender equality and empowering all the women and girls. So this Sustainable Development Goals put this imperative that no one should be left behind. Everyone should come forward. Everyone should be in the mainstream of the society, in the mainstream of the community. There should not be any discrimination. That is something like the inclusive policy. No one should be excluded, and that's how they are perceiving to get and to achieve this agenda of equality through these sustainable development goals. So these goals are to address and to find the solutions for deep-rooted forms of discrimination, we all know, that have affected the most vulnerable people in the society. Vulnerable people, that is, you see, the indigenous peoples, the LGBT peoples, the migrants, the persons with disability, the older persons, the sick persons, the refugees. There is a list of the persons who can be put in the category of the vulnerable groups that is there, and women and girls are also the part of them. So you see that these type of the persons who are in the vulnerable groups, and others also who are marginalized, who are not in the mainstream, who are not the part of the mainstream, that is here to realize with this agenda of 2030 through this sustainable development goal. So equality, inclusion, and non-discrimination. This is a human right based approach to development, and it is the best way to reduce the inequalities, or rather I should say positively, to achieve equality. The United Nations has the standing mandate on equality and non-discrimination, and it is the central duty also to promote and encourage the respect for human rights. So you see, not only the UDHR under Article 1, but the Charter of United Nations of 1945 also, that sets out the core purpose of the United Nations is just to promote and encourage the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms of all. And that freedom and that human rights are to be encouraged and respected without any distinction, so as to the race, language, you see, religion, or any of the sects. So there shall not be any discrimination. Now, coming to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which speaks about the equality, which speaks about the freedoms, which speaks about the inherent dignity, because all these things are related to empowering the human being. So the very preamble of the United Nations, this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that is recognizing the inherent dignity, the equal and inalienable rights, the equal rights of men and women, that are considered to be the foundation of every freedom, the foundation of justice, the foundation of peace in the world. And this is for all the members of the human family. As I told you, that being born in the human race, these all rights are available to every human being. So very importantly, as I told you, Article 1 of the UDHR, that declares that we are born free, we are equal in dignity and rights. So these rights are available to everyone. But there are other provisions also besides Article 1. You see, the provisions which speaks for equality in the UDHR, and these principles or these provisions are also the parts of many of the constitutions of the world, including our own Constitution of India. Because you all must be aware about Article 14, that also speaks about the equality rights, equality before law, and equal protection of law. So similar terms, you see UDHR under Article 7, that speaks about all are equal before the law, and all are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection of the laws. So all are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration, that is UDHR. If there would be any inequality, if there would be discrimination in violation of this declaration, then this Article 7 that speaks about the equality, and that would be considered to be violated. That is the provision, that is the declaration. Besides that, if I'm talking about in reference to the empowering and equality, then I have chosen few more articles from the UDHR, because as I told you, the entire UDHR speaks about the equality. but there are some specific articles also which speaks about the equality, or which speaks about that there shall not be any, or there should not be any discrimination. So particularly if I see that Article 16, which is related to this right to marry and to found a family, and that speaks about men and women of full age. So they have a right to marry, they have a right to found a family without any limitation, that may be on the basis of race, on the basis of nationality, on the basis of religion. There cannot be any limitation, and they have a right to marry. And they are also entitled to the equal rights as to the marriage, and during marriage, and at its dissolution also. So you see that marriage can be entered into with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. Now, when I'm saying that with free and full consent, that means the parties have their right to equality as well as the right to choose the partners for themselves. And that free right, or the full consent right to the men and women, is empowering them to choose for themselves. So we see that they will be empowered to take their own decisions. Then the family is the natural and fundamental group, unit of the society, and they are entitled to be protected by the society. They are entitled to be protected by the state. The state parties have to make the laws in respect in their domestic laws, in their municipal laws, so as to protect these persons who are getting into marriage. But you see, there are certain things which are also very important to be discussed upon. They are very, very important to be pondered upon, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that is providing for the full right of the marriage, the right to found a family. On the other hand, we are also witnessing honor killing, which is against this human right. Then another human right under UDHR is Article 22. That is conferring upon everyone the right to social security of economic, social, and cultural rights. So everyone has this right. Everyone has this right for dignity and for development of the personality. And everyone is entitled for realizing the rights through the national efforts, through international cooperation. So whatever rights have been mentioned in this UDHR, those rights are to be made available through the national laws, through the international cooperation. And those rights are also to be in accordance with the organizations and resources of each state. So if we see that this right under Article 22, which speaks about the social security, that is again one of the expansion of this equality right, which has to be there to provide the empowerment, to give the empowerment to the person concerned. Then another way of equality through which the empowerment can be seen is Article 23, that is right to work. Everyone has the right to work, and as well as it is not only the right to work, but right to free choice of employment is also there, to do the which has to be done in the just and favorable conditions. Everyone has the right to the protection against this unemployment. This is Article 23 of the UDHR. Everyone has the right to equal pay and equal work without any discrimination. Everyone has the right to work as getting for the just and favorable remuneration, so that they can ensure for themselves, not only for themselves, but for their family also, a life of human dignity, a life they can lead with full dignity. And if required, then the social protections need to be given for their worthy existence also. And for that, the state parties has to come, and the states have to make the law. So you see that various constitutions, they have incorporated these principles and these provisions in their law, either in the statutory laws or in their constitution. So just to give them the protection, to give them the right to work, so that they can lead a life with full dignity. And then Article 25 is related to motherhood and childhood. That motherhood and childhood is they are entitled for special care and assistance. All children they shall enjoy the same social protection, whether they are born in or out of wedlock. So you see, the judiciary in India is also very, very progressive and transformative in that way. And we have the legislations also, wherein we find that the children, they are born, they are getting the social protections also. And thereby the motherhood and childhood, these are required for having the special care and assistance. They are entitled for that. So they are getting through the national laws also, besides the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These are the rights which are empowering not only the children, but the mothers also. Then Article 26, which is important for everyone, that speaks about the right to education for everyone. And the parents are also having a right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. Besides this right, that besides the parents' right to choose the education, the children, they are also conferred with, if they are of the full age, they can enter into any academic institutions. This is having their right to education, which can open the pace for their further development, for their empowerment. Now, besides, you see the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, many subsequent international human rights treaties, human rights instruments, they also gave some substance to this vision of equality. And these international instruments, they defined and expanded the grounds of discrimination. So the discrimination that are prohibited under the international human rights law. You see this 1986 Declaration on the Right to Development that calls for more equitable and non-discriminatory development with more and more participation of all, and the fair distribution of the benefits of the development to all, the distribution of the benefits, whether it be scientific development, whether it is technological development or other types of the development. So that has to be shared with all, so that they can all enjoy, they can all be included in the mainstream of that development. So this declaration is like that, which also speaks about non-discrimination, and that speaks about more and more equitable rights to the person concerned. Then this Convention on the Child Rights, or the Rights of the Child, specifically, if you see Article 2, that confers an obligation on the state parties just to respect and to ensure the rights, so that each child within their jurisdiction, they can be given all the opportunities which are to be necessary for the development of the child without any discrimination of any kind. So it is not material that who is the child, or who are their parents, or who are their legal guardians, or whether the child is belonging to the one race, color, sex, or belonging to the other. So no discrimination of that type. Also the religion or the political or any of the other opinion, there cannot be any ground for which the child is to be discriminated. So Article 2 of this Convention on the Rights of Child is also very important, and the state parties have to make the laws because they are under the obligation, so that they may be treated with equality. Therefore, the child equality, or the children who are to be treated with equality, that is the foundation, that is the I should say the foundation for enjoying all other rights, including for their empowerment. So this Child Right Convention, Article 2, is also important. Now, regarding equality, if we see that equality is not only a fundamental or to achieve the human rights, but equality is a fundamental human right. Now, coming to this empowerment, that empowerment is a developmental concept. in which you see individuals, family, and community, they enhance their potential with the equal participation. Why equality and empowerment are coming together? Because if you are having the equality, by that you can have the empowerment also. So empowerment is like a developmental concept, and it is for all, that they can enhance their potential if they are being allowed to have the equal participation, if they are being allowed to be participating in all the functions, in all the types of the functions and other developmental proceedings of any of the state which is taking part. So if we say that empowerment simply means that the people have the power, the people have the control over their own lives. And in simple words, empowerment, that people are equal citizens. So if they are equal citizens, then it would be considered that they have become empowered, and they are respected and confident in their communities. That is also important. Then they are empowered. If there would be any discrimination, like in India we see untouchability, there is a constitutional provision, fundamental right, abolition of untouchability. Still there are discriminations we find here every day. So if the person, they are respected, they are confident in their communities, in their societies, in their group, then they are empowered, and they have a voice to speak about themselves, and they are to be treated like equal citizens. Then they are empowered. So they will have the same opportunities as everyone else to live good lives in the communities. They are empowered. So empowerment is related to equality, and those who are vulnerable, they are not treated as equal citizens. They need equality, they need empowerment, they need to be brought in the mainstream. This is possible only if they know their human rights, and others let them allow to enjoy their human rights, because we have a society where there are different types of the hierarchies are there. Though we have the equality rights, though we have the laws which are based on the non-discrimination, we have the laws which are based on inclusive policies also, but still in practice we see that some of the groups of the persons, some of the persons who are put in the marginalized category, who are put in the vulnerable groups, they are not being allowed to enjoy their human rights. So this equality is required for those vulnerable groups. This equality is required for those persons who are not in the mainstream. And if they are being allowed to enjoy their human rights, particularly equality, then they can also feel themselves empowered, because by virtue of being in the mainstream, they would have all the rights, they would have all the opportunities which the others are having. So to me, empowerment is the expansion and the translation of one's freedom and rights into action. And that freedom and rights into action, that should be skillfully, knowledgeably, meaningfully, and above all, confidently. If I'm confident about my rights, if I know about my rights, if I am aware about my rights, then I will have the confidence to exercise, to enjoy that right. So this is just in order to maximize the potential of the person. This empowerment is nothing but it is just to maximize the potential of the person by giving them the opportunity to enter in the mainstream, to enjoy their rights, whatever have been conferred upon them by international instruments or by national legislation. Now, coming back to equality, as equality itself is very broad term. So I'll be focusing mainly on the gender equality and empowering and empowerment through the human rights for the women and girls. As I told you, the different types of the persons in the group of the vulnerability, they are required to be empowered. They are requiring the equality, but different laws, different international instruments are available for them. And I am focusing only and only towards the women participation or women mainstreaming or the discrimination which is being faced by the women in our society. That is, they are facing this inequality that is based on the sex, that is based on specifically on their sex. So if we talk about the inequalities, or if we talk about the gender equality and gender empowerment, then we find that this gender inequality is persisting globally. It is not confined to any one country or the other. So gender-based discrimination is the outcome of patriarchal attitudes and social norms, we all know, that deprives the women and the girls of their basic rights and opportunities. So empowering women and promoting the gender equality, that is crucial. And it has been repeatedly proven also that empowering women and girls has a multiplier effect on the economic growth of the nation, on the development of the nation. So achieving this gender equality, that also requires great efforts on the part of the nation, on the part of the state, and efforts to repress, efforts to suppress the deeply rooted gender-based discrimination. Equality, you see, is an aspiration that benefits the entire society, and the society that includes the girls and the women as well. So that is also affecting them also. You may be aware that half of the world's population is women and girls. And you see, if the half population is of the world is women and girls, hence half of the world's potential is also represented by women and girls. And across the globe, they face discrimination. Women continue to be underrepresented at all the levels of social life, political life, cultural life, and others mainstreaming. They have disproportionate share of the unpaid domestic work. Discriminations and inequalities are being faced by the girls. That starts right from their birth, or I should say even prior to birth, in the mother's womb also, by killing them in the fetus. So they are deprived of their right to birth. They are deprived of the other rights also, and we see that these deprivation, which starts from pre-birth, that follow them to all their lives, in all their social, economic, cultural, political spheres. Wherever you see, they face these deprivations. The girls are also deprived to access the health care or proper nutrition, that is leading to the higher mortality rate. They are denied their right to education. Dropout rate is very high in the secondary education and higher education. Then this disadvantages in education, this translate into the lack of access to skills also. And because of the lack of the skills and trainings, special skills trainings, they have limited opportunities in the labor market. They have limited opportunities in the job. And due to that lack of this job opportunities, women and girls empowerment gets a setback, because right to development is directly associated with the empowerment of the person. Right to equality is directly related to the empowerment of the common man, including the women and the girls. So if they are not allowed to get into education, if they are not allowed to access the skill trainings, if they are not given the opportunities to have the different type of these trainings, then the job opportunities would also be very, very less for the women and girls. And through this, they are also getting a setback for their empowerment. So we see that this is a common knowledge that empowerment is essential for the economic growth, and it is also to promote the social development. So the girls, they face the different types of the deprivations, including violences also, that affects their mainstreaming, that affects their empowerment, that affects their equality. For example, you see they face the child marriage, they face the sexual violence, domestic violence, dowry, sexual harassment. So all these things, all these you see are there existing, and their potential that cries for equality, that cries for the dignified life, a human right which the counterpart is enjoying without any deprivation, social or patriarchal, whatever it is. We all know, we all are aware about that. So to bring equality, transformative change is required, and only by ending all forms of discrimination, one can enjoy and exercise his or her basic human rights. So we see that equality is fundamental to achieve the human rights, and through human rights to equality, one can achieve the empowerment also. Now, the specific provisions which are meant for the upliftment, which are meant for the equality rights, which are meant for non-discriminatory functioning on the part of the community, society, family members, in social, national, political, and other norms. And that is the Bible that is known as the CEDAW, that is Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And India is also signatory to this convention. So you see that before CEDAW, we know there were many international human rights instruments, as I told you also, that ensured the equality between men and women. Despite that, discrimination against women continues to exist. So in order to ensure the principles of equality of rights and respect for human dignity on equal terms with men and women, that is in all the fields, whether it's political, social, economic, or cultural fields of their countries, the CEDAW came in. And discrimination that creates hindrances in the participation of women, the discrimination that hampers the growth of the prosperity of society in the family. Discrimination makes more difficult the full development of the potentialities of the women. So if there would be equality, they can contribute in the services of their countries, particularly, or we can say for the humanity in general. So the state parties to this convention, you see, they have all agreed to participate and to bring the national legislations, and they are also being convinced for establishing the new international economic order. So all this has to be based on the equity and justice. So this may contribute significantly towards the promotion of equality, towards the we can say empowerment of the women in the society. And very importantly, Article 1 of this convention, CEDAW, that explains the term discrimination against women. And you see here, discrimination is any distinction that is made on the basis of sex. Discrimination is the exclusion that is made on the basis of sex, and discrimination is restriction also that is made on the basis of sex. So this definition of this discrimination against women, this discrimination may be either distinction, it may be exclusion, it may be restrictions, every type of these things may be there on the basis of sex that has impaired or that has nullified the recognition, enjoyment, and exercise by the women, that is on the basis of equality of men and women, on the basis of their varietal status in any of the field. So this is their human right, this is their fundamental freedom, and if it is there, then it would be discrimination. As this convention is against discrimination, so Article 3 of this convention also tries to ensure the equality which is resulting in empowerment. Empowerment in the political life, in the social life, in the economic life, in the cultural life. And for this, the state parties, they have to make the laws, they have to take all appropriate measures, and they have to ensure the full development and the advancement of the women. And the legislations are also to be made to ensure the exercise and enjoyment of the human rights of the persons concerned. So you see that this convention of the against discrimination for women of 1979, this is a very important convention through which we see the equality and empowerment are the focused areas. Article 11, for example, you see it speaks about the to eliminate the discrimination against women in the field of employment. Because the women, they are not being allowed to enter in or to take part in the employment because of the other burdens, other domestic burdens upon them. So this is a very important Article 11 of the CEDAW, which says that the state parties will also make take some appropriate measures to ensure the equality and the same rights as that of the men, right to work with the same employment opportunities, and the criteria for the selection in the employment will also be the same. The right to free choice of the profession would also be there, the right to promotion, the right to job security, all the benefits like different types of the trainings, vocational trainings, retrainings, apprenticeship, and all these, they are entitled to receive all these conditions in the services. Then right to equal remuneration would also be there. That is that all the benefits which are related to the employment, those are to be made available to the women. Equality of treatment in the evaluation of the quality work. You see, there was one survey that has been done by Amazon. Amazon has done some study on AI technologies. So you see that some biased data was fed into that, and the results were also coming out wrongfully. So you see the equality of treatment in evaluation for the quality of work, that is very, very important. And if you are feeding the biased data, then of course the wrong algorithm will come out. So that is important, that the equality must be available for the women. And you see this CEDAW is important in that way, and it provides for the respect of work of equal value to all the women in this world. So the right to social security is also one of the human right, like retirement, like unemployment, like sickness, old age, or other types of the incapacity to work. For that, right to paid leave is to be made available to the women. The right to protection of this health and the safety in working conditions, including the function of the reproduction. As I told you that the less and less women, they are being joining in the employment due to various types of the other restrictions, be it the marriage or some social factors or some other factors. So, and at the same time, they are also not being having the social security measures. So this Article 11 that speaks about the social security measures also, including with the employment to the women. And at the same time, to prevent the discrimination also in the fields of the marriage and the maternity related leaves, etc. So to ensure that effective right to work is to be enjoyed by all the women. The state parties, they are making the laws to prohibit any dismissal on the ground of the pregnancy or on the ground of the maternity leave, to prohibit the discrimination on the marital status of the women. You see Air India versus Nargesh Mirza case, you all must have gone through. That is, the rules have been made on the basis of the marital status as well as on the maternity status or the pregnancy status of the women concerned, how those rules have been declared as discriminatory and unreasonable. So this provision under CEDAW that speaks about to prohibit the discrimination in the dismissal on the basis of the marital status, on the grounds of the pregnancy, on the ground of the maternity leave, and all these things, the state parties have to make the laws. Further, the women, they also face the loss of employment, loss seniority or other social allowance on the basis of the maternity leave. So the laws are also to be paid in that regard. And further, you see the establishment of the establishment and development also of the child care facilities that are also required, that are also to be encouraged. The women who are having the children, they also don't go for the employment, they also don't go for the job because of the small children. So for that, the other types of the measures are to be taken by the states, so that they may protect the women and also the pregnant women in work that is not to be harmful for them, and the child care facilities are to be made available for the small children, for the little kids whose working mothers are there in the employment, so that they may continue with their employment in the same manner as the males they are working for, because they become father, but they are not facing these type of the discriminations, because they have not to take care directly of the small or kids or the little children. So these special provisions are to be made for them. Then regarding provisions that call for the state parties to take all appropriate measures, that is to eliminate the discrimination against women. That includes discrimination within marriage and within the family. Article 16 that addresses a number of issues, particularly related to the family law measures, like state parties that they have to eliminate the discrimination against women which are related to the marriage and family relations, particularly to ensure the same rights to enter into marriage and the right to freely choose their spouse and to enter into marriage with their free consent, with their full consent, and the same rights and responsibilities for the marriage and dissolution. This is you see the provision is there in the CEDAW. So besides CEDAW, you see 4 world conferences also tried to ensure human rights of the equality, development, and empowerment. The Mexico Plan of Action and the first UN Conference on Women that was held in Mexico in 1975, the Second World Conference of 1980 in Copenhagen, the third one was in Nairobi of 1985, and that adopted for the forward-looking strategies for the advancement and empowerment of women, and the fourth World Conference of 1995 in Beijing, China. That is the Beijing Declaration as well as the Platform of Action of 1995. That is very important, and that can be said to be a visionary agenda for the empowerment of women. And this 1995 agenda that still remains today the most comprehensive global policy framework. You see, that is said to be the blueprint for action. It's a source of guidance, it's a source of inspiration just to realize the gender equality and the human rights of the women and girls everywhere. Latestly in September 2020, the 25th anniversary of this landmark Beijing Declaration was also conducted, and the UN Women that called for the fast tracking and accelerating the work on the different agendas which are meant for the gender equality and empowerment of the women. So fulfilling those commitments that were made the part of that Beijing Platform Action. So that is the delivery on commitments, that is the conference resolution that should be executed. So for gender equality and empowerment, besides these CEDAW and the 4 world conferences of the women, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization that also worked for, and that has come up with the policies. The first policy that was of 2016 to 2019, and the second one is 2020 to 2023. And they also recognized that gender equality and empowerment of the women, that is lie at the heart of its mandate. So to harness the full potential of women as leaders and also as the economic agents of change. These policies of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, they addresses for transforming economies. They addresses for generating inclusive growth also. These policies focuses to enhance the role of women in the poverty reduction, and also to promote them as the investors, as the entrepreneurs. So to create some conditions for the women's entrepreneurship, more and more job creations, to give them education rights, to give them vocational trainings, and women leadership is to be given. So all these are the parts of this this policy of United Nations, that is through Industrial Development Organization. And because you see, gender equality and women's economic empowerment is not only important for realizing women's right, but it is also a part of the smart economics. If women play the same role in the labor markets as men, then economies will also grow faster. This could happen only by reducing inequalities. This could happen only by advancing gender equality. So this United Nations Industrial Development Organization, that is developing certain strategies also for the gender equality and empowerment of women in this 2020-2023 policies to achieve gender equality and empowerment. Then besides that, UN Women is also working. Prior to that, UN Women, that was of 2010. There were different agencies or different world bodies which were working for the upliftment or for the empowerment of women, like UN Development of Women, that is Development Fund for Women, then Division for the Advancement of Women, some Office of a Special Advisor for Gender Issues. So all these have been merged, and now UN Women is working for the achieving gender equality and gender empowerment or women's empowerment by this UN Women. And the UN International Research and Training Institute, that was also working initially for the advancement of women. Now it is also the part of that UN Women. We see that at national level in India, the principles of gender equality, those are enshrined in the Indian Constitution, be it its preamble, the fundamental rights, the duties, the directive principles, the main parts of the Constitution. The Constitution not only grants the equality to women, but also empowers the state to adopt the measures for positive discrimination in favor of women. Everybody must be aware of Article 14, 15, 16, and particularly 15.3. So considering these supreme principles in 2001, national policy for the empowerment of women was prepared by the Department of Women and Child Development in the MHRD ministry at that time. Presently, it's a Ministry of Education. With the single goal to bring about the advancement, development, and empowerment of women, and equal access to participation and decision making in the social, political, and economic life of the nation, equal access to healthcare, quality education at all levels, the career and vocational guidance, employment, remuneration, equal remuneration, health, safety, safety and social security, at all these things were the main focus of the policy of 2001 National Women Empowerment Policy. Then to change the societal attitudes and the community practices to mainstream the gender perspective in the developmental process, be it agricultural sector, it may be industrial sector. There are certain supportive services for child care facilities, creche at work. Then the educational institutions are to be made supportive for the women, homes for the aged persons, for the disabled persons, economic empowerment of the women, the poverty eradication has to be there. So you see that economic empowerment, social empowerment of women, the political empowerment of the women by making different provisions in this policy of 2001, and that all is the part for empowering the women so that they may enjoy their rights, they may enjoy their social rights, economic rights, political rights, and the involvement of women in science and technology for their skill trainings, that is also a part of that, so that to eliminate any type of the discrimination and also the violence against women and girl child. These were the broad areas on which this policy had to work, including the international obligations under the CEDAW, as I told you. But the question is, if equality is a human right, equality is a fundamental right, equality is a natural right, equality is there in various constitutions, provisions, equality is there in various legislative provisions, then there are various programs, policies to eliminate the discrimination and bring equality. Then why inequalities exist? Then I have seen one statement given by the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, when he stated, I quote, that achieving gender equality and empowering women and girls is the unfinished business of our time and the greatest human rights challenge in our world, unquote. Reasons are many. There exist traditional, social, cultural, and customary practices. The women's equality rights were historically been considered in the private institution of marriage or family, you see. So women claim their rights in relation to this institution through family law, customary law, personal law, religious basis. The issues of marriage, customary marriage practices, polygamy, adultery, dissolution of marriage, including the division of property, inheritance. So in these cases, traditional, social, cultural, and customary practices like customary or religious marriage, divorce, inheritance practices do not meet the equality rights provisions in constitutions or international instruments. So gender equality and women's rights are affected by these customary religious or patriarchal laws or practices to some extent. And there are the areas where equality needs to be protected for the empowerment. Gender equality jurisprudence such as dignity or the economic rights, reproductive rights, education, decision making, and so on, they are also become very, very important. It is important to note also that India ratified CEDAW in 1993 of 1979, and it had made an reservation that is pursuant to Article 5A of that CEDAW, which speaks, which provides that the state parties shall take all appropriate measures for modifying the social and cultural patterns of conduct of men and women, with a view to achieve the elimination of prejudice and customary and all other practices which are based on the idea of inferiority or the superiority of the either of the sexes or the stereotyped roles of men and women. Now, the reservation on this article states that India shall abide by and ensure these provisions in conformity with its policy of non-interference in the personal affairs of the community, personal affairs of any community without its initiative and consent. So the approach taken, we see by the state while ratifying this international convention against discrimination that is of in 1993. Though India had taken this reservation, but the approach taken by the judiciary are sensitive to intervene in religious matters. We see that still judiciary in its progressive and transformative interpretation that is trying to solve these challenges. Shaira Banu case, Sabrimala, Haji Ali Dargah case, Vishwalochan Madan case, Vinita Sharma case, then Babita Punia case. These are a few examples from the recent past. And a positive trend related to the approach of the courts to this discriminatory practices based on religion and culture was observed in the decisions like Vishwalochan Madan, that is Fatwa issue case, this Sabrimala case, and then this triple talaq case also. So we see that although apex judiciary is reading international treaties ratified by the state to reinforce the obligations to advance the gender equality and women's rights, they are applying innovative interpretive and techniques also, such as social context, substantive equality, constitutional morality, and evidence-based decision making and purposive interpretation to advance gender equality and jurisprudence. Vishakha case, Railway Board, Chandrima case, and many more other examples are there for the innovative interpretation and purposive interpretation to uphold the gender equality and their empowerment. But the need is to devise some mechanism so that the courts, particularly the constitutional courts, can monitor the implementation of their decisions. Although the mindset of all cannot be changed in one go, but a gradual change is seen, and female mortality rate is declined now, female literacy rate is gone up, women's participation, representation in political arena is on the higher side than before. Independence of women is seen now. Employment rate is not as much praiseworthy, particularly during this pandemic time. Women have to suffer a lot. But I hope that with so many laws, policies, programs, both nationally and internationally, the national and international commitments to advance gender equality and to bring about improvements will be seen shortly, but gradually. The promise of the world that have everyone enjoys the full equality, resulting in their empowerment in general and gender equality and empowerment in particular, without any legal, social, economic barriers, will be fulfilled. And this equality and empowerment can be achieved through human rights which are meant for all human beings. So with that, I'm very, very hopeful that we'll also perceive this equality and empowerment not only in the gender perspective, but in other perspective also, and everyone, because equality is required for those who are being discriminated, and discrimination is always related with the vulnerability. So I see and I hope that near future gradually we'll feel that maximum of us, it's not going to be the full empowerment very in near future, but maximum of us will feel that we are having our right to equality and empowerment. So with these words, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing this lecture on the very auspicious day, that is the Human Rights Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful words. Now I would request our Honorable Program Head of NSS Unit of NLU Assam, Professor Mr. Himanshu Ranjan Nath Sir, Assistant Professor, National Law University and Judicial